Hi, property people. Thanks for joining us today. As always, we will be sharing ideas, experiences, problems, and solutions for property people like you. Our interviews will get you to know some of the most active professionals in the industry that have achieved some pretty impressive stuff. Hearing about their successes, failures, strategies, and insights, we really hope you enjoy. Just finished having a chat with Alex Goldstein. Alex is a very interesting chap, a very energetic and enthusiastic chap, 19 years in the property business, and he is a property consultant. So slightly different to an estate agent, has the quirks of has the traits of a buying agent, based out of Yorkshire, Harrogate, beautiful place, and London, worked for some huge names in the industry, and brings a wealth of knowledge and opinions that I think you'll enjoy. So please like, share, comment with all your friends and family. And remember, the bigger this gets, the more places we can go together. Hope you enjoy. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Property People. Today, I'm very privileged to be joined by Mr. Alex Goldstein. How are you today, Alex?
Very good, Sam. Great to be here, and thank you very much again.
Good. Well, we're very excited to hear much more about you. You are an expert property consultant with over 18 years experience based in Harrogate. Alex, you help clients to buy and sell residential property in some of the most desired locations in the country, including Yorkshire, London, and the home counties. So I wanted to bring that wealth of experience. I've been following you on LinkedIn quite a lot, and I was actually referred to you by somebody that I've been doing some business with. And I really liked your energy and a lot of the stuff that you put out there. So, and you also come from a background which I have some sort of affinity to with is all right. So before we go into all of that, are you an estate agent?
No, I was, and then if you will, I saw the light and spotted a niche in the market and went my own way. But I suppose just as a brief history, I started my career actually with Cluttons, and that was Oxford, and then very quickly Berkeley Square, which was head office, and I was involved with country houses and estates nationally, church commissioners in the Crown Estate, and then I was then more latterly Stratton Parker and Knight Frank. So I suppose the big corporate names through and through. And yeah, I've been in the business now actually 19 years. Time creeps up on you, I suppose. And I set up on my own about 9 years ago and picked up everything about who and what I knew about estate agency and property, and give clients, I suppose, the inside track. What's my take on it? I've done this for 19 years, day in, day out, with no career breaks whatsoever. And if you know, and it doesn't matter whether it's property or cars or bricks, if you know how a particular sector works, what buttons to press and in what order to get a particular result, and if you press them in a slightly different way, you get a different result. Great if you know, but often people don't know. And why would they? I mean, I'm saying to clients at the moment, if you haven't bought and sold in about 6 months, you're probably slightly out of touch, if I'm honest. The speed of change has been just incredible at the moment.
Incredible indeed. And that wealth of experience and the energy and passion and enthusiasm for what you do it comes through very naturally. If I was to ask you, before you went to Clutton, Stratton Park and Knight Frank, all of the huge names, big players in the industry, what kind of person were you? Because this is all about property and people, and I always like to get to know where that energy, where that enthusiasm comes from. Who were you at school? Did you always know you'd be doing this from your adult life, for the next 19 years?
No, gosh, no. I wouldn't go that far, but I accidentally fell into it, if I'm honest. So when I was at university, my parents' next door neighbour happened to have a very good sort of local estate agent's office, and I sort of said, "Oh, can I earn a bit of money?" And he said, "Yeah, come along for 2 weeks, see what you think, and go around a couple of my offices." I was then there 3 months and getting paid by the hour. got paid very well as a result of it. But then when it came to leaving university, having some form of experience, I then went into the graduate training scheme with Cluttons, and then I was pitched against other graduates. But because I had the initial experience, I could actually talk with some knowledge which they couldn't. It opened the door, and away I went. Now, prior to all of that, what I suppose is the background. I suppose you could say, is there an entrepreneurial gene in my family? Maybe. Yes. I mean, my great-grandfather was almost infamous here in Harrogate. He had a internationally renowned women's fashion department store that he started from scratch, and this was in the 20s and 30s, and it was very much a household name. And indeed, the sort of older clients and individuals here in Harrogate still recognise him. My dad started his business from scratch. My grandfather actually started his business from scratch. So is there something in that? Who knows? But it certainly helped things in the right direction for me, I'm sure.
Absolutely. I think that there is a statistic that if you come from a background, or your father or mother or somebody in your family has been an entrepreneur, the probability of you going down that same route is a lot higher. I don't know exactly what the statistic is, but it kind of sounds reasonable. It's happened. We actually have a very similar background, in that I mean, I always wanted to be an estate agent. That was a small difference, but I did start out as a estate agent part-time, and then that helped me get full-time roles a lot easier. And it was actually my dad that said nobody wants a business graduate with no work experience. Correct. So that work experience really helped me progress my career a lot faster. Now, what did you study out of interest?
And it was a mix of biology and geography. So, strictly speaking, no property related to anything. I didn't go down the RICS route. Dare I mention them at the moment for being in the news for interesting reasons. But I'm actually Property Mark, or what was National Association of Estate Agents, and I did my sort of minor qualifications with them back in the day.
And I mean, well, you mentioned geography. You know, when I moved to London to be an estate agent, the A to Z was my Bible. You know, I used to have it in the glove compartment and was regularly using it. Has that helped you in any way, shape, or form?
No, when I say geography, I'm talking about global sort of hills, mountains, capitals, and socio-economic sort of demographics and all of that. So no, none whatsoever. It was purely down to, I suppose, that inherited drive, possibly through genes, maybe, who knows. And then, as I said, just having, I think nowadays it's pretty rare just to have someone stay in exactly the same career path since leaving university. A lot of the time people sort of chop and change, which is fine. But then I found myself having sort of looking it up, and it's like, oh, I'm 19 years in now. Where does time go? So it was an opportunity 9 years ago to set up on my own and do something very different.
Absolutely. You know, have you heard of the 10,000 hour rule, whereby if you do something for 10,000 hours, you become an expert?
Yeah.
And so I think typically if you do it kind of 9 to 5, I can't remember exactly, but I think over a 5 or 10 year period, you suddenly become an expert. So once you're touching 19 years, 20 years, where you're on that level, you've become an expert in your space. And that space, if you could go into a little bit more detail as to exactly, you talk about buying and selling. Typically estate agents, if you like, are agents that in the UK are known as selling agents. They act on behalf of the vendor, the seller, and that's where they get their fee from. That's where they have the agreement with. And then buying agents are not really that common, but as far as I'm aware, if you go to like Australia and the US and a variety of different countries, they do have that system. I mean, what is it you do specifically, and how best to describe it?
Well, I suppose you're correct. I describe myself as a property consultant. So you can basically split my business in two. You've got on the one side helping clients sell their homes. On the other side, you've got you're helping clients buy their homes. So what is partly out there is on the buying side, you've got Phil and Kirsty that kicked it all off, who are on TV. And clients come to me with specific criteria. That's their budget. and it's over to me to source property through a whole plethora of means, if you will. I negotiate for the client and look in their best interests, and I'm retained by them. So they pay me a fee, very much, and especially as we speak today. Yes, it's properties that are on the market, but there's been this overwhelming surge of properties that are in the off-market sector. It's not in the public domain. Sometimes it's with agents, sometimes it's not. It's purely need-to-know basis time, and it's getting clients to the front of the queue if you've got a competition to make sure that you get it over the line for them. So that's the buying side. That service, it does exist. A lot of it is London and home counties orientated, and then there's the odd smattering elsewhere in the UK. So people sort of understand that primarily because of the TV. Now, on the selling side, this is very unusual. And this, again, as I go back, this is giving clients the inside track. And often I get parachuted in literally whereby someone is in the market, they haven't sold, and they don't know why. And very often they're frustrated because they feel the agent's giving them a lot of salesmanship and hot air, and they're saying, just drop the price, but there's no viewing. So why should I drop the price? Or it's a client that hasn't sort of sold in a very good number of years, or quite frankly, they don't like and they don't trust estate agents. So I independently go in, 19 years in the industry, and I say, for example, Saam, look, this is how to add value. This is how to structure it. Independently, this is the right agent to bring in on this basis and the reason why. And I effectively orchestrate everything on behalf of the client. Now, what's interesting here is I can go to any agent out there. Whoever is right for the client, that's who we go with. They charge the client their standard fee in the market, whether I was involved or not, but the estate agent pays me out of that. So if someone is selling their home, they do not pay me anything at any point. And one of the reasons I sort of set up by myself is, I suppose it becomes a fairly significant burden if you are consistently pressured, targets, KPIs, the accounts team sort of banging the drum saying bill, 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 and it's property suddenly became very much sort of a hard sales type role, and that just isn't the way that I'm wired, I'm afraid. And as I said, spotted an angle. I think one of the best examples I can give you recently of where I've helped a client, say, for example, in London, they had a very nice apartment in Mayfair in a very good address. I'll say it was with one of the bigger names. And because the owner didn't live there, the agent sort of let things slip and drift. And there was no real motivation. So then what I did is I went and I said, you know what, keep that agent on board. They've worked hard and they've been with you a year. So let's see if they can actually earn their keep finally. And what I did is I actually introduced a smaller agent who was pretty ferocious at times, go-getty, hard-nosed agent. But what was quite interesting, I knew behind the scenes, both agents hated each other. They did not get along at all. So I put them in the room together and they metaphorically had a massive punch-up. I then did the whole psychology thing of, I said, it's on a joint agency, but I'm going to weight the fee. 80% the winner, 20% the loser. And you can imagine what happened. And it went amazing. So after a year of nothing, in 6 weeks, we found the answer. We're under offer. And it was actually my agent that I introduced to the process that won the day. So an extreme example, a lot of fun. And I did have to say to everyone, just stand back. It's going to get messy. And it did, but it worked. And I'm acting on behalf of the client. They didn't pay me anything. Everyone won. Client wins, agent wins, I win. No one lost.
That's exactly how to structure these sorts of things. I think from my experience, the estate agent in the UK or the property consultant, knowing how to transact and how to piece all of the different puzzle parts of the puzzle together, whether it be buyers, sellers, expectations, solicitors, conveyancing, valuations, all of that together. I think it's somewhat underappreciated sometimes in the UK and undervalued. I mean, when you look at some of the commissions that are being earned in the US and a variety of other countries, and some of the regulation that they've got and the professionalism that they bring, I think sometimes, estate agents, I remember when I was an estate agent, I think we were up there with the two worst, most hated professions in the country, up there with traffic wardens. So, I used to go around pretty sheepish about what I used to do, and I was never that proud of it, even though I absolutely loved what I did. Over the years, I think that's changed slightly, and people like yourself have brought an element of professionalism to it. But do you feel that at all yourself? Do you ever suffer from feeling that people don't appreciate or respect the profession?
Very much so, and that's partly why I have a job, because there will always be an element of people that have had a bad experience, that just don't like agents for a whole host of reasons. But this is where the whole market has shifted over the last 10 years, and it's obviously been accelerated in recent years as well. But and this is what a lot of, I suppose, the online and the hybrid agents play on at the moment, is let's get your property on the market with a nice glossy brochure and photos and floor plans and all of that. Let's be absolutely clear, that is not rocket science. You can do that. My 10-year-old son could do that. It is not difficult. What is the most difficult is getting under offer and doing the appropriate due diligence on your buyer to ensure that they're reliable and secure. But going from under offer to exchange is, as we speak, the most difficult I've ever known it in 19 years in the industry. And everything has takes so much longer. Life as we know it is much more complicated. Legals, banks, surveyors, it goes on and on and on. I've currently got a case whereby the solicitors are debating about a 1906 conveyance, and something was raised then. And I've said, don't be so ridiculous. I said, if someone really wants to come in and sort of call that in, I said, let's sit around the table, have a cup of tea. I'll even buy the cake. But this is that again is an example of the world and the litigation and the suing type culture that we've sort of almost sort of sleptwalked into. And the good agents, I think, sadly have been pulled down with a lot of the run-of-the-mill agents who just concentrate on getting a property on the market for sale, and as soon as it goes under offer, they drop it. And I've got an instance literally yesterday, I won't name names, an online agent did exactly that, found the answer, dropped it, left it drift for 6 months, and the day before exchange, their buyer pulled out. And they're now left, the seller holding the pieces, whereas an agent with experience that can pick up all the signs, can plan ahead and all of that, they are worth their commission in gold. And I know everyone, it's a bit of a taboo subject about agent commission. You're right. And we can't be fairly compared to those agents over in the States or the realtors. They're up to 6, sometimes 10%, but they're acting for both sides and they're handling the legals and all of that. The UK agents are not doing that, but recently, in a good number of years, the agents have almost been just competing on fee alone. And as we speak, it couldn't be further from the truth. And a decent agent that will get the property over the line and transact on it, their commission is a drop in the ocean. It bears no significance, but it starts the whole catalyst and people can move on with their lives and on to the next chapter. That's actually what it's about at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think it goes from area to area in terms of that price sensitivity. There's some areas that you might find that are a lot more price sensitive than others, but certainly it is a fraction, literally, of the entire transaction. And especially if you've held on to that property for a number of years, there's a good chance you've had some capital growth in there. So the actual fee becomes almost negligible in the grand scheme of things. Now, in terms of your take on online agents, you mentioned just a moment ago. What's your take on? Actually, before I ask that question, would you be an advocate for regulation, more regulation to have licensed estate agents and brokers in the UK?
To be honest with you, I'm very mixed on it. I don't see to what end, because in any industry, it doesn't matter if you look at the financial guys that are very, very heavy regulated, you will always have the rogues in any industry, whether they're licensed and regulated or they're not. Could it be of benefit, as you mentioned, to show an agent's true value and worth? Maybe, but in this country, property, let's face it, is weird. People react around property. There's so much emotion and high octane mix of money as well. I just don't see the upside. I really don't, and I think it's just more bureaucracy and red tape, and you throw that and you overlay that on the top of what we have to currently do with anti-money laundering and know your client KYC and all of that. And it's just layer upon layer of bureaucracy, and the government are trying to get us out, trying to kickstart the economy, and just putting more red tape in the way. Again, I just can't see the upside. Happy to be corrected, but wait and see.
And the online agent, has that helped the market in any way?
Yes, in that it really helped, I say, high street agents. I'm not going to use the word traditional because that gives all the wrong impression, but the high street agents, it forced them to really up their game, focus on their marketing and their client care. And it's been very interesting. You can read some of the statistics online, don't take my word for it, but the way, especially through the pandemic, the way that the high street agents have accelerated away above and beyond the online agents, because people, it's starting to dawn on sellers that you actually need to take some time and care. You're dealing with significant amounts of money usually as well, and you've got to bring all of those threads together. At the end of the day, my biggest issue with hybrid and online agents is lack of experience. And I know YouMove, as an example, is very open and saying our guys have no property experience. Well, that's not exactly great marketing if you're selling a £500,000 house that someone has taken 10, 20 years to get to that point, and you're saying, well, this chap used to sell second-hand cars down at the market. He's now going to be in charge of a £500,000 property purchase, and all the quirks and intricacies that go with it doesn't add up. And you're then paying their commission up front, and they've got no skin in the game. The whole thing is highly questionable. They're only just starting to make profits, some of them after an insane amount of money getting plowed into it. But they have been an advantage, but not to their benefit. The high street agents have gained ground.
Yeah, no, you know what? That's a good point, actually. Personally, I'm not a massive fan, or haven't been a massive fan of the online agents. I just see because of the way that, especially when they started out, they structured their fees where they would take them up front. They're effectively a listing agent, so they get paid whether they sell something or not. Whereas as you would call it, or not call it, the traditional agent, there would be a success fee upon actually being able to complete a transaction.
No sale, no fee. They don't offer that. Some are changing their business model, but then all of a sudden you're saying, well, you're not an online agent then, are you? And again, the downfall, for example, with Countrywide, they tried, Alison Platt back in the day tried to take it more onto a retail sort of mass market type affair, and again, well, proof's in the pudding there. Look at the mess, unfortunately, that they're in. And again, property in the UK is bizarre. There is no other marketplace like it, and to suddenly come in from a retail angle, or we are a disruptor tech model, people and the way we buy and sell property in this country, it does not fit, and that has been proven time and time again. But I'd say keep on going, because it keeps me in business and it really helps the high street agents.
And like I think the largest online agent right now is Purple Bricks.
Yep.
And the way that they used to hire their area operators was to hire branch managers from established estate agents in the local area to give themselves local knowledge. But they've been going through a recent restructure. Do you have much intel or information on what that's all about?
No more than what's actually sort of in the news. I think it's always interesting. Yes, they may have back in the day poached the odd person from a mainstream high street agent, but then look, 1 year, maybe 2 years, check in on them back on LinkedIn, for example, see what they're doing now, and I bet you they're not with Purple Bricks. That's all you need to know.
But I do agree with you. I think overall what I have noticed is that there are some really passionate, good quality high street agents that have upped their game massively to be able to say, look, we are going to be charging you more, but we're going to be giving you a lot more for it as well.
And we'll get you a lot more, and we'll get it over the line. I'd rather have my money in the bank rather than someone on a bit of paper memorandum of sale saying, we'll probably get you this amount, but it's not confirmed. It's meaningless.
What about rentals? Do you do anything with rentals?
No, I firmly sort of stick with what I know, what I'm good at, and I suppose my background and training. But no, rentals and commercial, just not my area of expertise. So I just am purely on the residential sales side.
It's always good to be able to focus and have an area of expertise. And so if you get somebody that comes and tells you, hey, Alex, we've got this 3-story building, it's got 3 units in it, and we need to find tenants, we don't want to sell it. How do you go about helping those people? Do you refer them over to local letting agents and just say, or do you just say, I really can't help on this particular?
Oh, no, I'm completely upfront with people. If you again, a lot of businesses sort of try to fudge the issue, and the problem with that is if you don't know what you're talking about, you're going to get found out. And the problem is, and the way I've built my business is just word of mouth. I'm very fortunate that it's regularly been about 90% each year is just word of mouth, just repeat business. So if, for example, it's something that I can't help with, it's lettings or it's commercial or it's an area that I can't handle, I've been doing this a long time. More often than not, I'll have a connection in the area that I know and trust, and I'll just say to this individual, look, I can't help, but I'll signpost you and I'll help you in the right direction. Here's an intro to Fred. And Fred, off you go. I don't want any referral fees from it. A lot of businesses do. I don't, because it gets messy and a complication. Again, the number of times you do that and you help people for 20 minutes, maybe half an hour, point them in the right direction, point out a couple of pitfalls to be careful of, it always comes full circle 3-6 months time. And you always get a contact or a friend of theirs saying, look, you help this chap, I'm a friend of his, and look, here's an amazing opportunity every time. And I'm a firm believer that it always goes in a very big circle. And I know you sort of asked me back in the day, well, how do you gain a lot of your business? And you've got some excellent profiles online and all of that. And again, it's been quite interesting to analyze and watch. Social media is great, don't get me wrong, and there are some amazing platforms and you can reach a lot of people, but, and I think this goes for a lot of businesses, especially I suppose a high ticket item, if you will, something like myself that's a bit more specialist. You're not selling pens at the end of the day, whereby social media is perfect. You're not going to sell my business and my services on social media. What it's there for is profile awareness, that you're real and you're tangible. And I've always found that by sort of, I suppose, prodding people from all sorts of different directions, it's a podcast that we're doing, it's writing for the Yorkshire Post, it's appearing on BBC 5 Live or whatever it's going to be. They just pick you up at various intervals, and when the time is right, you'll be coming at them from an angle and they'll go, great, I need to give Alex a call. And then once you're through the door and you do a great job and you ask them to keep you in mind and say, refer, who do you know? Who are your friends and connections? I regularly get, I've had one client, he's given me in the last week 3 of their friends that all need help because they're all chatting around the sort of the school playground, and my name gets brought up. And it's the best form of marketing, because you know, if you've been recommended by a friend, I know I'm straight through the door and I'm going to be 90-95% odds on to get the business if I want it. I think a lot of people get bogged down in the minutiae of social media and just concentrating on the number of likes and follows and all of that. It's something that's reactive, and at the end of the day, and this is where the online agent and, dare I say, Rightmove and all the portals, this is where they fall down very heavily. Digital marketing is faceless. You go on to Rightmove, you look at a property, you are a number and a statistic. And Rightmove, as an example, have massively cut back the amount of information they pass on to agents behind the scenes. And so what? We got 100 viewings of Saam's property this week. Big deal. Agent, can you go and follow them up? No, because no one's got that information. Rightmove don't hold it. It's just a number and a statistic. And the only reason you look at the statistics is Saam's property doing on average with our office properties, or is it better, or is it worse? And if it's worse, has something been left off? Oh, yeah, we forgot to put the floor plans on. Right, there you go. That's it. And what's been really interesting, again, how the market has hugely changed, is the power up until recently was Rightmove and social media and all the tech platforms under the sun. They had the power. At the moment, it's going back to the future. It's going the other way. And I wrote an article on this just a couple of weeks ago, whereby this is going back to old school agency basics. Who do you know? Pick up the phone, off-market sector. We're not now playing the right move game and on the market and all of that. We but estate agents will pick up the phone to people that they know and trust that are in the marketplace. And a lot of vendors as well, thanks in part to Zoopla, don't want their personal information and photos of their family and their house details being online like confetti. It goes everywhere forever. And it's very, very difficult indeed to get rid of a digital footprint. And I think a lot of vendors are now listening to what's possible in the off-market sector. I think a lot of buyers are now gearing up for this, and estate agents are doing extremely well on the back of it. The only downside is the agents don't get the razzmatazz of we've sold this amazing property because they're not allowed because it's off market. But that is the way the market has shifted in, dare I say, the last couple of years during the pandemic.
And I agree as well. I mean, repeat business is the best business, and referral business, word of mouth is the best form of marketing. It's got the best conversion rates and the best cost association as well. Yep. In these areas that you're operating, you've got Yorkshire, London, and the home counties. So you are based in Harrogate, yep. And that's where you live. So how do you find your job from going from kind of Yorkshire, Harrogate, which is such a beautiful place, and traveling down to London? Are you here on a weekly basis, daily basis? A lot of things can be done online in the way that we're doing this as well now. Yep. But property from my from my experience, is you've got to be knocking on doors and you've got to be touching and seeing where the partitions are and smelling. You've got to be there on the ground. So how do you find going between these two locations?
Well, people often, when I first set up, said, well, hold on, that's two pretty extreme locations, Yorkshire and London. And the reason I did do it and I can do it is because that's where I used to work and live. That's my network. Those are the areas that I know. Funnily enough, I'm actually down in London tomorrow seeing clients in St. John Woods and the city. And what's, again, been very interesting from my perspective, it's very unusual that I actually use Zoom. I could probably count on one hand the number of times I've used Zoom for clients, even during the pandemic, because the property business and my business in particular, it's face-to-face every time. And you're quite right, Saam, it's about the touch and the feel, and as I said, you're buying into myself and my time and property. As I said, you're talking a huge amount of money sometimes that someone's taken a very long time to build up, and they want to see the whites of your eyes, not across a computer screen at the end of the day. But from where I am, the train from York to King's Cross, no stops, direct, hour 45. Amazing service. Very rare that it's delayed. I've got the laptop, I've got my phone, that's all I need. And I'm sort of in London at the moment every couple of weeks and do it as part of a long day. If a client says, I need to see you ASAP, it's easy. And again, what's been so interesting post-pandemic, and this is the massive positive that's come out of COVID, is that it's forced, and this was always bubbling behind the scenes, but it's forced companies to finally realize we can have a remote workforce. We need to make now substantial savings. Please do go work at home and come into our hub one or twice a week. And all of a sudden, funnily enough, people in London, the home counties, have gone, well, that train line's pretty good. Where are we going to go and where's in the news the whole time? Where's the best place to live in the UK? Harrogate is constantly number one. They head northbound. And equally, I've got, you mentioned earlier on, I've got clients in Singapore and the US at the moment, Yorkshire expats coming home, fed up of city life. And we've also got a very strong local market here, and our prices have just accelerated a phenomenal amount. I mean, borderline insanity on some occasions, but this is the new benchmark for Yorkshire. And everyone slightly, dare I say, put a bit of a downer and saying, well, it's grim up north, and talk about the sort of north-south property divide. It's all about London. wrong, and it's now gone the other way. It's the south-north property divide, and I'll say it here, this is the start of the wave, and I think Yorkshire is tipped to be one of the best performing regions in the next 3 to 5 years. And one of the statistics I read recently by one of the big agents, over the next 5 years, Yorkshire goes up 21%, Yorkshire 4%. Where are you going to put your money?
I hope in 3 to 5 years' time, we're going to be having clips of this all over social media with hashtag I told you so.
I hope so as well, but I did tell you.
Very good. I mean, one thing I happen to agree with, I think that the yields in the north are so much higher than what you can get in the southeast that automatically it's just the way the funds end up flowing as well. So that yield compression will come. And as one part of the market starts to kind of run away from the other, I see it in London just with properties with outdoor space. People are paying crazy money because of what happened in the pandemic. They're really paying premiums for this stuff. So now you've got this huge disparity between the ones that don't have. So they're actually starting to get quite popular now because people are finding huge value in them. But then the gap will become a bit closer. We have it as well with like the Victorian conversions, which are so beautiful in London, versus the ex-local authority. Everybody rushes out to get the Victorian conversions. The huge demand booms, and then ex-local authorities look like really good values. So then there's another surge of that, and it just keeps on going up like that. And I think right now, in terms of the north-south divide, I think that the southeast has had so much time and attention over the last 10, even 20 years that really the north. I mean, there's been talks about things like the Northern Powerhouse and increasing the transport links. Like how is all that going? I know Manchester gets a lot of buzz.
Well, that's primarily because of the Premiership. And I should also throw, not that I follow football that much, but Leeds now being in the Premiership, huge amount from investors from the Far East, Hong Kong in particular, because they follow the Premiership religiously. And that's why Manchester and Liverpool have always fared so well. But I'll put it out there. Channel 4 in Leeds, Asda, Morrison, they're in Leeds. The Bank of England have got a post here in Leeds, and they're not going to be just sort of doing that on a whim. They would have done a significant amount of research. And we've also got sizable blue chip companies that have always traditionally operated out of London. They're all now here in and around sort of Leeds, Ilkley, Harrogate, York as well. And it often filters down this way. If the big guys are doing it, why aren't the mid-small guys doing it? And they now are starting to click going, you know what, we don't need the extremely expensive Mayfair offices. We've got a remote workforce. We need to make some savings, and the money and the investment is all in the north. You've got a much lower sort of buy-in point. Your overall yields as a result are better. And I recently sold a sort of a portfolio of apartments to a Singapore hedge fund just outside of York, because York was sort of on their radar as one of the big universities, and away you go. And I think it's been the trend for the last few years, certainly pre-pandemic, whereby investors just couldn't see value for money at the end of the day. It was a very, very high buying point across the whole of London and the southeast, and a lot of the developers, again, a couple of the big names were trying to get out of London ASAP, and the money is sort of going beyond London now. And again, we've got COVID to thank for that. That is the positive out of all of it.
There's always a silver lining with everything, which we'll come to in a moment. That particular block, though, do you know what the yield was that the Singaporean?
Off the top of my head, it was, I think it was about 10%.
That's pretty good, to be fair. I mean, that is really good. I mean, to get something like that in London is near on impossible. Yeah. So that's great. I also wanted to ask you a little bit about the new breed. We've gone down the traditional agents, online agents, and the new breed of super agent. And I would probably put you in that category, if I'm honest. And that is the likes of, $1 million listing in the US, famous TV show. Have you seen it?
No, but no, I've briefly seen it. And by super agent, do you mean those that are dealing in the prime and super prime market?
And that they're also famous,
Yeah, and you've got a couple of names in here in London that I wouldn't say famous. Again, this is the whole social media myth. They're not. And even with what I do, and I handle properties from about 750,000 all the way up to something at sort of nearly 20 million at the moment. People, as I said, do not want their details, their home, shouted out across social media, and they lose control of that, and they will never get it back. And these super agents, as you're calling them, going around with their phones on Instagram, on Twitter, and their videos going, look at me, this is the house that I'm showing. Wrong. That is helping the agent. That is not helping their clients. And in fact, I actually think it's doing them a disservice. And I think Gary Beauchamp in London also recently wrote along these lines saying, you know what, it goes back, as I said, think old school, back to agency basics, black book of contacts, pick up the phone, go and meet them. It is not about flashing people's houses. And again, there's been instances whereby people have done that, super agents, to use your terminology. It's a divorce case that they didn't know about. The other half saw it, and it just went bananas because they saw it online. And guess what? That agent was in very deep water.
You know, I think I know that story.
It's out there.
You know what? That's an interesting answer, because I didn't think you'd say that, to be honest. I thought you might be more of the what I would consider to be like the 21st century, kind of like, you know, moving into the digital age where everything is out there. But actually what you're saying is, you know, it's going a bit too far, and actually people will revert back to which is actually
they already are, Sam. And people don't trust social media. Look at all the misinformation that's out there. It's loss of control. And in particular, in my business and the clients that I deal with, they do not want private information. You're going into the most private quarters of their lives. You're going through bedrooms and wardrobes and in the attic, and absolutely every hidden corner. You're getting sight of their bank accounts. Absolutely everything is on the table. And if you're going in there with your mobile phone and your social media platforms trying to gain followers because it makes you look good and feel good, that is going to end up in trouble. It's already been proven the case. Discretion, confidentiality, and just being integral and sort of reliable within that whole process. That is what people want at most levels in the market. And I think it's a misnomer for people to say, well, he's got X thousand followers on Instagram and Twitter, so that doesn't make him a great agent. That just makes him great at being on social media. To what end?
So let's talk hypothetical, if I may. You have a client that comes to you and says, I really need your help to be able to come up with the best possible marketing strategy to be able to maximize the value and get it done really quickly. Now, I happen to know of this super agent, let's call them that for the moment. And I'm thinking about, you know, contacting them, but obviously because I'm not the expert in this space, I'm going to come to you and you're going to be able to. But you know what? I kind of like the idea of having my house on video and it going all over the world. And I think it might be able to help, but obviously, so would you automatically shy away from using that agent because
no, don't get me wrong here. Social media is a fantastic advertising free platform, and if a client wants that and they're open to that, good grief, absolutely go for it. I want videos, photos, absolutely everything. What I'm getting at is that some agents are doing it when the clients don't know, and they're doing it for their own gain, not their own clients' gain. And a very, very recent example, in the last 3 months, I sold a house on the back of social media. So I'm not against it. What I did is I took a photograph on my phone, quite a pretty property. I cropped it and zoomed in on a very pretty front door and sort of wisteria and a couple of windows, put it out on social media. Didn't say anything about where it was or anything like that. I went out to an appointment, bumped into a guy who I've known for a long time in property. And he said, oh, I saw your post. Where's the property? And I said, oh, it's XYZ. And he said, I can't believe it. This morning, I put the phone down to someone. Can I put you in touch? Yes, please. They ended up being the buyer.
No way.
That is where the power of social media does work. I'm just getting at that you've got to be careful with it. I think you have to do it for the right reasons. And a lot of those reasons have been blurred, shall we say, by the media and the super agents, because at the end of the day, it's not about the agent, it's about your client and doing the best for them.
And on that, there's a question that I should have asked you a bit earlier. Another hypothetical here, if I had to tell you that you could only be on the buy side or only on the sell side, which one would you pick?
Oh, golly, that's a hard question. Gosh, I don't think I could answer that, to be honest with you. For me, it's actually about the end result, and it doesn't matter whether you're buying it or you're selling it and you're getting them over the line because it's a divorce or it's a transaction they've been waiting 30 years because they've been there that long, and to get it over the line, almost the outpouring of emotion on either side is just incredible, and to be part of their lives for that is quite something. That's why you get out of bed in the morning, and the rewards will follow, whether it's the fee or it's sort of a recommendation onto any of their friends. It will always follow. And as I said, it's a very high octane sort of emotional mix, and people do the strangest things when they're under pressure. And I'm right in the middle of all of that. And don't get me wrong, it's not all glamorous, and it is very, very demanding at times. So no, I honestly really couldn't split it. I enjoy both sides equally, but I do it to genuinely help people, and that's why I set everything up to start with.
And what would you say that is the hardest part of your job?
Going under offer to exchange, as I mentioned, is torturous, especially at the moment, and things just take forever. Solicitors are almost paranoid, almost in part understandably, just this sort of suing type culture we've got involved with. Lenders almost come across that they don't want to lend. You've then got the whole sort of debacle with the leasehold scandal and the cladding scandal and RICS at the moment, and property sector's got its problems. But for me, it's under offer and trying to transact and get it over the line of exchange. That is so difficult at the moment.
It is painful, and if I think the statistic is still correct that 1 in 3 sales all fall through between offer acceptance and before exchange.
Not on my book, they don't, but yes, you may be right generally.
The national average. I think it's a lot higher than that, but you help it bring the average down. In terms of solutions, this is all about sharing ideas, experiences, problems, and solutions. The notorious, the conveyancing in here, especially in the UK, is old, archaic, and slow. I mean, we've got smart contracts with all this Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, blockchain technology. Is that part of the solution moving forward? I mean, do you see any? Do you have any idea? Do you ever think or mull over what solutions there might be to try and speed up this? I mean, the Scottish process.
Well, yeah, no, and again, equally, that's got its problems as well. The problem is, it's not Bitcoin, for example, and cryptocurrency. It's not transferring of money isn't the problem. Legals and lenders are the problem, and it's them, which I can understand given the financial crash. Not that I want to break all of that up, but they have become increasingly more regulated. They're very, very risk adverse, all of the lenders, and if you don't tick one of the boxes, they just don't want to touch you, whether that's fair or not. They just don't want to know. And it's almost gone to the other extreme now, whereby they're shying away from helping very genuine buyers that can afford their repayments. And solicitors, again, the amount of litigation involved. And I know legal firms that are actually closing or have closed their conveyancing arm because the risks are so phenomenally high, and their professional indemnity insurance have just gone through the roof, which is why you've seen various sort of conveyancing solicitors firms just get gobbled up by the bigger guys, because again, you can operate under a massive sort of insurance umbrella. The world has got a lot more complicated, but the bottom line is I don't have to live with the consequences. The bank don't necessarily, and the conveyancer doesn't necessarily. You, the buyer, have to live with the consequences. And if you're parting with what is often a very significant amount of money that, let's face it, it takes a hell of a long time to build up equity. You can be fortunate, or you had to build up your business, whatever it is difficult. And what you can't do when you invest, when you buy into a family home or an apartment, whatever it's going to be, you can't just glibly say, well, here's 500,000, here's 2 million, whatever the figure is, just on a whim. Because, as I said, at the end of the day, it's a form of investment. You can't just part with that sort of money without any safety net and reassurance. Is there a way to cut through it all? Yeah, I'd like to see, and I've got one at the moment whereby we're asking for an upfront non-refundable deposit. And if you've got the right buyer, they will make it happen, and you can immediately sort of relax, dare I say, and you can take a bit more time with legals, and everyone gets along, and you've got that immediate sort of buy-in. And again, Scotland's got it to some degree, but it's only once the missives have, as they call it, have been signed. That's actually only when it's binding. When you go sort of agree initial terms, it's not. So again, the same thing can happen. I think it's going back to old school basics. Shake hands with people. I often get them in the same room and saying, right, are we all agreed? This is what we're all going to do. Happy, look each other in the eye, handshake. Issue the paperwork. It goes a long way. And if you can, an upfront retained client deposit, and away you go. And what do you know? You get a lot more over the line. People get on so much better. That, I think, is the way that it could potentially be done. But there's no silver bullet. And as I said, property has got its quirks.
Absolutely. And I wanted to, I mean, there's a lot of people that watch YouTube videos and podcasts and those sorts of things, and a lot of people that are always trying to get into property. For those, what does it take? You've been in this business for 19 years. You can tell by your fountain of knowledge. You love the industry and you're very passionate about it. And in the regions that you're operating in, you're a property person. What would, to somebody new trying to get into the industry, what would you say that they would need to have to become a property person, a property people?
Well, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what sector you're going into, but being punctual, presentable, having energy and enthusiasm doesn't cost you anything. I suppose the world again has changed since I had my work experience back in the day. But I would say to anyone, if you're thinking of getting into property, get the experience. That's how I got into it, because I was fortunate, and it just happened to be my parents' next door neighbour. But if you sort of, and this is more to those at college and sixth form, and those at university, or those that have just left university, offer your services. You've almost got to do it for free, I'm afraid, in order to get your foot through the door. And the number of times I've seen people do that and just go in with such amazing enthusiasm, and they're all over it, and they're willing to soak up as much information as they possibly can and pump people for information and contacts and connections. And I was networking before I secured my job at Clutton's. Experience is absolutely everything. And if you can just pull on some of what you've picked up on, even if it's only for a week or 2 weeks, you can then go into any job interview sort of on the right basis, and you'll beat the competition. That's all that it's about. I know people say, well, go for various qualifications in property. We don't need it. Yes, you can go for the RICS qualification. Very few have it in the residential side. As I said, I'm Property Mart for what it's worth, but again, they've been through the mill as well. You don't necessarily need that to get into the industry. It's a people business. And as I said, presentation, being punctual, and just being a force of energy, that goes a very, very long way indeed.
Well, I can certainly vouch for your force of energy. You were incredibly presentable, and you were punctual today. And I would like to thank you for taking the time. I really hope we can do this again in 3 to 5 years' time to see if these predictions, maybe not wait so long, actually, to be fair. But I love the fact that you call me Saam as well. I really appreciate that. And if people wanted to find you, Alex, and reach out to you, pick your brains or do business with you, what's the best way that they can find you?
Well, you can easily find me on Google, and the website is pretty easy. It's alexgoldstein.co.uk. And I usually say to people, try me on the mobile, because like most people, I've always got it with me, 07939 060 103.
You can have half the world calling you now.
Hopefully, we'll see. I'll let you know.
And across socials as well, like on social, like do you check your LinkedIn messages and stuff?
Oh gosh, yeah, the whole time. As I said, I'm on all the right platforms, but as I said, it's about profile and awareness. And fortunately for me, my name's a bit more unusual, Alex Goldstein. So you only need to type that in on Google or any of the platforms. You'll very easily find me.
Happy days. Well, thanks again for joining us, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you very soon.
Likewise, Sam. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for tuning in today. We've got lots more super active property people coming up, so keep up to date. Click the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, leave us a comment, share us and find us across social media, and we'll see you next time.